Have you ever made a bad choice? In my life, I've made lots and lots of bad choices. Let me tell you what happened in Berkeley, California, February 3rd, 1974. I was 22 years old. My hair was down to here. I had a straggly beard, an ugly Fu Manchu, and I looked like a biker. I looked like a bad guy. And that was really good. It was fun. I wasn't a biker, but I just looked like one. But first, before I get started, a little background. Have you ever heard of MK Ultra? This is a secret plan launched by the CIA in the late 50s to experiment with LSD, acid on people, and see what the effect was. They wanted to see if they could create super soldiers. It didn't work. They wanted to experiment with LSD as a truth serum. It didn't work. However, the way this program worked, the CIA dosed their subjects. In other words, they gave them acid without them knowing. Some of them knew it was coming, most didn't. Some went crazy, some committed suicide, and some thought it was the most enlightening moment of their lives. So, back to my bad choice. Well, actually a bunch of bad choices. February 3rd, 1974, on a little side street on Durant, in UC Berkeley, in Berkeley, my buddy, What the Fudge Chuck, you can figure out what that really means. What the Fudge Chuck, where him and I were sitting in my VW van, waiting for the right moment to make our move, to rip off Willie the Weasel, or a stash of smack and money. Smack is heroin for you newbies here. So, back then, in the political radical community I hung out with, ripping off smack dealers was cool and often admired. Smack was bad for the community. We were essentially returning this dirty money back to the community and putting another smack dealer out of business, well, at least for a week or two. Heroin dealers were bad. It was okay to rip them off. Marijuana, pot dealers, they were good. You didn't touch them. They were good for the community. So, back to the caper. But the Fudge had convinced me to come along. He said he needed another hand, and he assured me this would be easy. No guns, no violence. The weasel was easily scared and just hand over the goods. We just needed to be mean-looking and scary. My job. So I was stupid. I was young and made a bad choice. So eventually, it was time to do it. We climbed out of my 1965 VW van and went up the stairs and knocked. Weasel asked through the door, "Who is it? Who is it?" And then What the Fudge? And said, he knocked again, and the Weasel, "Who is it?" As he opened the door, suddenly, boom! We kicked it in, we ran in, and the Weasel was short, and skinny, long stringy hair, small eyes with a long narrow nose, and he looked sort of like a weasel. Startled and frightened, Weasel had a big bat, ready to swing it at us. He did swing at us, and he missed. And then What the Fudge pulled out a gun, a little pistol, and aimed it at the Weasel. Gun. Weasel had promised, What the Fudge had said, no guns. Come on, Willie. You know what to do. Just give us the cash and the smack, and we're out of here. For a moment, Willie looked at us. We looked at him. So suddenly the kitchen door slammed open, and a woman came out. Bang! 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 She sort of, if I can get my jacket open, looked like this. Carrying a pile, on a silver tray, a pile of vials full of LSD. She'd been carrying this tray. She crashed to the wood floor, and the vials scattered and rolled everywhere. She's a middle-aged woman wearing a lab coat, short brown curly hair. Willie the Weasel started screaming, "You shot the acid queen! You shot the acid queen! You don't know what you did! You don't know what you did!" I'm 22, and I watched her die. I kneeled next to her, avoiding the growing pool of blood, and watched her eyes as they flicked away what happened, and she went pale, and that was that. Suddenly, bang, bang, bang! And the Fudge shot the Weasel. He collapsed to the ground next to the acid queen. And then the fudge looked at me. He was like mumbling, no witnesses, no witnesses. He was in shock, I was in shock, but the fudge was shaking his head, going back and forth as he couldn't deny what happened and maybe go back in time. He looked at me, his eyes bugging, his body shaking, and he mumbled, no witnesses, no witnesses. He looked at me, and as he raised that gun, I moved. I grabbed the baseball bat off the floor, swung it, hitting his head, bam! And I hit him again, bam, bam, bam! And then he fell to the ground. I poked him with the bat, nothing. Nada. He was still. The weasel was still. The acid queen was still. The room stunk of blood and gut. The room stunk of panic and desperation. I gathered myself together. Using my shirt, I wiped my fingerprints off the bat and dropped it. The bat rolled across the bloody floor, came to a rest next to the acid queen's body. I went into the kitchen. After a little scrounging, I found a grocery bag. Went back in the living room and gathered up all the glass vials and threw them in a bag, even those were covered with blood. Inside each vial were tiny sheets of purple tinted gels, LSD, tiny hits of acid. I grabbed the cash that was sitting on the table, but I left the smack. I left the heroin on the table next to the scales. You know, I got morals. I hurried down the stairs, calmly got into the sidewalk, into the street, got into my VW van, started it up, drove away. The streets were empty. Nobody saw me. Okay, what then? What happened then? Well, those tiny purple gels were not what I expected. They were not normal LSD doses. Instead, there was some experimental analog, a US government experiment, something new and different. And it works. It works. I know what you're thinking. I know what you're thinking. I tried the new experimental drug, and now I have powers. Some of you, believe me, some of you think it's just all BS. But some of you are just scared. It's your choice. Make a good choice. Madam Toastmaster.